satisfactory report, but I guess we can see that and make judgment of it when it appears.
I think at this point we can focus on the administration point of view of the decision that's been made to date, and then put that on the council agenda, and then invite all public input, all groups, all interested parties to then comment at that point, and then we can take it forward at that stage. Councillor Murdoch?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My comments are going to be similar to Councillor Rice in, what are we actually asking for? I got the impression we were just looking for some information that would kind of, rather than talking about process, be a conversation about what's been brought to us this evening. So perhaps it's best to ask the clerk to read back what Councillor Plant has asked for. I was still interested in what Councillor Rice had asked of our CAO, just with respect to, I guess, what his thinking was when he gave that guidance to Councillor Plant. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like from our clerk first the motion as it was recorded, and then if it's all right, I'd like to hear an answer from our CAO.
Can you please read the motion back, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The request is that council ask staff to provide a report to a future council meeting on options to Mount Doug parking, which will emphasize, with an emphasis on the solutions for Glendenning Road and Cedar Hill Road. Excellent.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, Councillor Plant did vote for me, and I think he's captured my comments back to him pretty reasonably. My understanding was that he was looking for some options with respect to what might be available. I did not understand at the time that the public process would be part of it. I thought that report would come to council with some of those options and then be subject to that process, because certainly if we're going to undergo that kind of review with the community at this point, that's going to take considerable time. So my understanding was he was just looking for what might be available on the ground in a physical sense to council in terms of providing some potential parking at one or more of the locations or accesses to the site. That was my understanding, and if I've got that incorrect, Councillor Plant can correct me.
Councillor Murdoch, again.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the answer from the CAO, because that sounded like a little more than what I thought we were going to be getting. That's taking us down the road of looking at solutions. And so maybe the way to get ourselves unwound a little bit here is a referral motion that we could then discuss that. I don't know if that's a committee of the whole, so we can have the public speak to it. At this point, I guess, with our new procedures, we could equally do that at a council meeting. So my recommendation with respect to Councillor Plant, I totally understand what you're trying to do here, but so that we can maybe unwind this a little bit and have a discussion before we go seeking a solution, is a motion to refer this to a future council meeting.
Discussion on the referral. Councillor Worthington.
This is a little comment. I encourage us to keep it simple. I'd encourage us to keep what we're looking for simple at this point. Get a report, get something back from staff. But if it gets too complicated, this is not the only item that staff is working on. And I would just encourage us to see if we can find a simple solution to what we're looking at here tonight. Maybe not the perfect, but it will be a solution. Thank you.
Councillor Haynes.
I'm going to pounce. I understand what you're saying.
Can't hear.
So, okay, I will speak. Clearly, this, at one level, looks like a simple solution. Hey, just reverse the parking ban on Glendenning.
Yeah. Yes.
That is, at first glance, a simple solution. But that is not a simple solution for the residents of Glendenning. And by doing a knee-jerk reaction, it may not bring the best long-term solution. And I think if we have some patience, as Councillor Murdoch has indicated, to let it unfold a little bit more, collect some more information, we'll have a better outcome.
Councillor Plant, you had your hand up.
Yeah. Pardon me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So is there a motion on referral right now?
Okay, I'm going to speak against referral because I think in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we're going to be exactly in the same spot where we're going to be asking for a report for options. In 2 weeks, when the public comes in and says, we don't want more parking, we want more parking, we don't think you should do anything, we think you should do everything, we're going to then say, well, let's have a report to look into it. So I'm just suggesting that this report will be something that then in 2 to 3 weeks we can debate. So I think we're referring it now to another meeting is really just pushing us to the same result in 2 weeks. So asking for the report that starts off the discussion is something we can do tonight. I don't know, Mr. Mayor, if it's appropriate for me to speak on something that was said before during the motion motivation. Is it allowed?
Go ahead.
So very briefly, a couple comments have been made tonight about motions during delegations. And we have, I would ask the clerk, if I can ask for clarification, is there anything in our council procedures bylaw that, and in the specific part on delegations, that prohibits us from making motions during delegations?
Through the chair, the council procedure bylaw stipulates that the council member may ask questions of the delegation to clarify or correct information, but must not enter into debate on the item which is the subject of the delegation. So that is a debate at the time of the delegation ongoing.
So is the clarification then that we have just contravened our own bylaw by moving, or is it debate with the delegation member?
That's
Right, so that's how I've interpreted it, because Mr. Mayor, as you recall, we've had several motions during our tenure since we've had delegations that have allowed, that we have passed motions. For example, the Goat Girl, she came and did a delegation, and we made a motion saying, go visit the 3 advisory councils. A referral, but a motion was made to refer. And I'm not trying to be contrary, but this notion that EDPA Town Hall, as my colleague to my right has said. So it's not without precedent, and it's not breaking the rules for us to do this tonight. The comment I would make to my colleagues is we are upcoming for a review on how we do our council procedures bylaw. And if council is opposed to any motions being made during delegations, then we should say that, as opposed to what I would describe tonight as kind of alluding that we shouldn't, but that we can. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to address those previous comments. I come back to the motion on referral saying, do it now, let's have a discussion, let's not ask to have a discussion.
Any more discussion? Okay, I will speak on this as well. I won't support the referral either, simply because I believe, not just in this case, but in many cases, we are the ones in charge, and in open council session is the time for motions. Some are appropriate, some are inappropriate, but it's the time for motions. I'm looking at the audience and wondering what's going through their minds right now. I'm reminded of an episode of The Simpsons where they're not able to, I'm sorry. An episode of The Simpsons where Homer was stayed home for the day. And he was watching television, and on television was an episode of Municipal Roundtable where they were debating the difference between redistricting and reapportionment, and then the TV went staticky and it broke into a football game and he rejoiced. It's just one of those things. It's nuances and details, and we have rules in place and we have a process in order to get through our business. But sometimes we need to listen and act, and you good people have come here tonight and expressed an interest in finding more answers to this issue, and I see that as the motion that has come forward from Councillor Plant. So with that, I'll call the question. Councillor Bryce.
When you make a provocative comment, you have to expect a response. The difference, Mr. Mayor, when you say we listen and make decisions, in fact, because we have it in this situation, we are not listening. I am not clairvoyant. I have no idea that the people who are here to have involvement in this issue, their position is. The difference chance, if we pass this motion to refer, this exact same issue comes before us, and every single person in this chamber who wants to speak gets up to that mic and tells us. And at the end of the day, we then tell staff, this is what we want, based on what we've heard. So the listen and make a decision, no, this is the make a decision.
Thank you for that. It's not quite what I said. I said listen and act, and act is quite variable. I believe that this council chamber should be a forum for councils to have the freedom to bring forth motions, and then we will debate them in open meeting, and some will go forward and some may not. And this is I think a classic example of it happening. I would like to call the question on the referral, if I can. Councillor Bryce, or sorry, Councillor Brownhoff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just say that absolutely no motions should come to this council, but that's it, no motion. So I agree that we don't know what those people think, and that's the difference with television. I'm sorry, I told people that we wouldn't be making any decision tonight, and what I've heard from the motion, there is a decision expected of staff to produce a report. So I'm supportive of referral.
I think we're getting lost here, and with respect to Councillor Brownhoff, that the council will make the decisions tonight, and I don't think it's appropriate to tell the public that we will not make certain decisions. I know that gets very, very complicated. We're going to have to address this bylaw, certainly. Certainly when people fill up this chamber and we hear from them, we are not hearing from everybody. There are people at home, there are people that are traveling, and so forth, and we're not going to hear from everybody. But for myself, I'm seeing enough people here, I recognize faces from the site visit that I made, that there's an interest in moving this forward to get more information, and it needs to be done. So with that, I'll call the question on the referral. All in favor? We have Councillors Bryce, Dermott, Wergelin, Brownhoff, Murdoch, and Sanders in favor. Opposed? Councillors Plant, Haynes, and myself. That motion passes. And so the item is going to be referred.
Or shade.
Order, please. Order, please. Yeah, please leave that to me. All right. So we've heard from the delegation, and with that, I think we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the adoption of the minutes, item C.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This next item for the adoption of the minutes is the special council meeting on October 6th, the special council is October 14th, council and committee of the whole of October 19th.
Looking for a motion for adoption. And seconded. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. At this point in the meeting, I'd like to invite members of the public up to speak on items E, F, and G. Those are resolutions for adoption and recommendations from employees. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak? Please come forward. If you're planning to talk about Glendenning Road, please hold that for the open forum at the end of the meeting. If you can give us your name and your address and then your comments in 5 minutes, we'll most appreciate it. And let us know which item you're speaking to.
Hi, my name is Echo Joshua Goldberg. I've been a resident of Saanich for 15 years. I live in what was originally Cosampson, Lapami family territory on Loy Road. This is my first time speaking at a council meeting. This is probably obvious. I'm really nervous. But it's not about parking, so I'm just kind of hopeful that it might go well. I'm here to speak to what on the agenda is recommendation F1. The recommendation by the Healthy Saanich Advisory Committee that Council consider forming an LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer subcommittee to the Healthy Saanich Advisory Committee for a 1-year trial. I'm speaking here tonight with much nervousness to support this. Saanich has come a long way since I transitioned from female to male 20 years ago. At that time, I could only get hormones illegally and was daily subjected to ridicule and abuse on the street. That hasn't changed all that much in some ways, but we have come a long way, but there's so much further that we need to go. The Healthy Saanich Committee has the goals of a safe, secure, inclusive, and engaged community. my life on Roy Road, where we've been homeowners for the past 8 years. Across the street from us is an elderly couple, no longer mobile. They've lived there since Roy Road was first built. We go and help them with their garden, which they're no longer able to do. Our next door neighbors, when they had 2 small children in a short period of time, we make food and bring it to them. It's completely irrelevant to us whether they are lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender, because they're our neighbors and we stand up for them. We care about them. They've offered the same to us. We've also had neighbors who threatened us with guns. We've had neighbors who have got drunk and right outside our window yelled derogatory comments in the middle of the night. We've had experiences going to pools and rec centers, having people stare at us, openly making comments about our bodies, openly questioning why we're in bathrooms or change rooms that we're in. But what I wanted to speak to mostly tonight, rather than focusing on violence, was issues of poverty and homelessness in our community. Housing and homelessness is a critical issue for many people in Saanich, not just LGBTQ people. And at the Healthy Saanich Community Workshop in 2013, participants expressed concern about economic disparities between neighborhoods in Saanich, lack of affordable housing, and the impacts of addiction, mental illness, and isolation on people in our communities. So this is not only an LGBTQ issue. But part of why I wanted to speak to this tonight as part of supporting this potential for a subcommittee is that from an LGBTQ perspective, our community is absolutely in crisis on this issue in relation to health. As a result of social stigma, isolation, and violence, LGBTQ people have higher rates of mental illness, including depression, both attempted and completed suicides, and addiction. I've lost many people in the community to suicide, young people primarily. At the same time, people in surveys, studies, multiple studies, time and time again in our area have reported that services are not accessible or responsive to our needs. Health services, employment services, recreation services. And transgender people such as myself have particularly high barriers to accessing supportive and knowledgeable care. From studies on homelessness in BC and Canada, we know that disproportionate numbers of LGBTQ people are homeless, particularly youth. 1 in 4, so 25% LGBTQ youth, report being forced out of their homes due to severe family conflict. We've actually looked after some of these youth through a community program that matches street-involved youth with people able to provide supportive care in homes. These youth have come from Saanich. They have Saanich families. They're gravitating to the downtown streets because they have nowhere else to go. 5 to 10% of the general population identifies as LGBTQ, but among homeless youth, defined as age 16 to 26, so really young adults, 25 to 40% identify as LGBTQ. So of youth who are homeless, nearly half are from the community. Homeless LGBTQ youth don't feel safe and can't access emergency shelters, so are more likely to sleep outside, which leads to health risks from exposure to weather, sleep deprivation, predation, and violence. I was a street youth when I was an adolescent, and it was with the support of my family that I was able to lead that life. But many people don't have that option. And in fact, lack of family support is exactly why they're in the situation they're in. 29% of homeless trans people in BC, transgender people like me, reported being turned away when trying to access shelters and other regional services. 1 in 5 reported being refused housing because of their gender identity or expression. We have double the unemployment rate as the general population. 22% of transgender people reported being assaulted while in shelters. This is just such a crisis for us. So as we consider how to improve the health of LGBTQ people in Saanich, the creation of a small subcommittee with minimal staffing, minimal budget resources seems like a very small thing, as a very small step in a good direction. If there's anyone here who's afraid of what establishing this might mean, I'm happy to talk with you about just normal people, right? We make food for our neighbors, mow each other's lawns. We're just normal people. And as part of considering how to improve the health of LGBTQ people in Saanich, I hope Saanich will also look at the homelessness and housing issues. There's so many things that can be done regionally. I know it's not just a regional issue or just a municipal issue, but there are some really wonderful opportunities before Saanich right now. The Regional Housing First initiative is a great example. It's difficult to speak to this, it's so personal. And this is such a small step and there's so much more that's needed. Much more is needed to ensure that everyone has a safe place to live. But I think this is a step in the right direction, that we can take it together. There are people in my neighborhood who are willing to volunteer. I'm willing to volunteer to be on committee, to work together, putting our own time in to help all of you to understand what our lives are like and to come up with solutions. The lesbians who live down the road from me, they have their own, as people working in the military, their own issues. People just down the road who just had the 2 kids, who have 4 grandmothers, those kids. There's so many of us in this community. And I ask that you take this very small step now, just to work together. That's all we're talking about. There's often in meetings like this a lot of focus on numbers and dollars, and I didn't expect on parking spaces. And that is an important part of responsible government. But please remember also that we're talking about more than that. We're talking about people's lives, everyday lives. So I wanted to close with a statement from people who have been homeless through the Coalition to End Homelessness Advisory Committee. We ask that you consider what a home is to you. What would you do without one? Where would you go? This is not a matter of policy, fiscal quarters, bottom lines, or election wins. This is about security, dignity, and survival. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, can you guys hear me? So my name is Alexandra Robin Klodge. I'm a Saanich resident. I live on Glenora Place. I always want to say it wrong. I'm a trans woman, and I'm the trans inclusion coordinator for the Victoria Sexual Assault Center. I'm also here in favor of Plans Initiative. Absolutely in favor. I think this is a exceedingly basic but very important step in ensuring that our communities are supportive and inclusive of everyone living in Saanich. As Echo said, there are a lot of us here. We're secretly everywhere. The discrimination, fear, and violence that we as queer and especially trans people face within our community is completely unacceptable. So many of us experience harassment, physical violence, and sexual assault. And all while being far too often, as I just said, rejected by our families, kicked out onto the streets. The trauma that many trans and queer people face has nothing to do with being trans or queer, or who we are. It's entirely to do with the way that our community and our society views us, the way that they treat us. And this trauma has a significant impact. One recent study out of Ontario found that LGBT youth are 14 times more likely to become addicted to substances or to attempt suicide. 64% of trans people experience sexual assault. 43% of us have attempted suicide. This is the most clear health issue I can think of. As far as I understand it, the goal of Healthy Saanich is to support a healthier and more livable community, and this subcommittee will help to ensure that it's healthier and more livable for all of us. And I think it's really important that in doing this, the voices of this community are heard.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Courtney Damone. I don't live in Saanich currently, but I grew up in Saanich. Graduated from Mount Doug. And I'm also a Saanich Rec employee. I run the Queer and Trans Youth Drop-In at the Commonwealth Rec Centre. And it's really awesome to see all of these queer and trans youth have a safe space in which they can be themselves and be respected for being that. When in the rest of their lives they're discriminated against, not just by their peers, but also policies and systems that have been developed without thought that they exist. Initiatives like this drop-in that we're doing can be promoted or stymied by policy and planning, and it's really important that our voices are heard within that policy and planning process. Not only do we face disproportionate discrimination, harassment, and violence, we have unique health and safety needs. Any trans or queer person will tell you that we teach our doctors every time we go in to the clinic. And yeah, policy decision and strategic planning affect that. Saanich has the opportunity here to be a leader in helping queer and trans members of the community, and it would be really awesome to see this happen. I've heard rumors that there's been concerns that creating this subcommittee would be catering to special interest groups. But this is not just a small group of the population. Like, we've all heard stats of like 1 in 10 people are queer. I don't know the veracity of that, but like, there is a lot of us. And we have unique health and safety needs, much like seniors do. And I understand that Healthy Saanich does a lot to help seniors out. And yeah, the same is true of queer and trans people, and our voices should be represented in the creation of policies and planning that affect us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, good to see you all again. I'm Larry Lane, and I live on San Lorenzo, 1850 San Lorenzo Avenue, in Gordon Head, and Mr. Mayor, councilors. I wanted to speak about the financial plan, but before I do, I just, the topic of the previous speakers, it's very moving. I wanted to share with people the name of a film. It's called The Best of Men. It takes place in England during the Second World War. And I saw it last night for the first time, The Best of Men. And it's dealing with paraplegics and how they were viewed by the public during the Second World War. And this doctor comes in to help these patients who have suffered spinal injuries and has a new way of doing it. And at first he's blockaded and has difficulty making people understand what his dream for these people is. Because up until then, these people eventually just wilted and died. But he brought them along, and he founded the Paraplegic Olympics. And it's a very,
Mr. Lane,
very
can I get you to address your
film.
comments
It's a very
to
moving
council?
film. Yes, sir. Okay, so the topic I wanted to speak about was the financial plan, and that was to try to. I've read what it's about. I don't understand what the document's about, but I have read it. I just wonder, don't we have a source that we can go to that's sort of simple? Couldn't we use for the information Saanich News? Can't we put the information that we want to share with public in an ongoing articles about the various aspects that the financial monies are going to be used for into the Saanich News? Then each time that appears, people will get to know that they can turn to then our website, Saanich website, and vote, make comments. I've encountered this on other things where you put in your name and address, and you can vote, and you can write comments. And couldn't we gather very cheaply and reasonably comments from Saanich into the council, and people have time to read those and then be informed and hear from as many people as want to, whether they can even come here. People can comment from home. It just seemed like an easy solution. And something else I've noticed is that there's a lot, when there's conflict, like we've had tonight over that one issue, the Glendenning Road, but Watkiss was another. When there's not a consensus, when you aren't all unanimous, couldn't it be possible to then look at the pluses and the minuses and other interesting facts about that issue, working together, then agree upon what those pluses and minuses are. This Monday night, Saanich News gets it on Tuesday. They print it on Wednesday. It goes out on Friday. People get it at their homes on Friday. They have the weekend to do the same thing. They can comment on this issue, whatever it might be, by sending their comment to a web page site that's created, even a vote. They could send a vote on this issue so that you get this information, and it's all been postponed till the next week. I guess that red light's on. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Next speaker, please. Please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Harvey House, and I'm a new resident here in Saanich at 3311 Faircrest Place from Newfoundland, Labrador. So if you can't understand what I'm saying, please just ask me and I'll try to explain. I'm here as well to lend support. I'm here as well to lend support to the LGBT subcommittee of Healthy Saanich. I'm a queer woman, again from Newfoundland and Labrador, and I did experience homelessness and sexual assault as a young woman. I know that you have pretty mild winters here in Victoria, but if you can imagine being homeless in minus 35-degree weather, you have to keep walking to stay alive. This is something that a lot of young people are facing here